I'm telling you, I've always said this story should be shared.
So back in, I think it was 2009, Cornerstone, the contemporary worship expression at Highland Park, was wanting to expand to another campus because their room was full and they had multiple services.
We were just about to sign the lease with an old movie theater. We thought, wait a minute, why are we going to invest in this old building that we're going to buy when we already, as United Methodist, own a ton of property? Isn't there an old church that's underfunctioning and underutilized in East Dallas? So to speed up a bit, we were driving around East Dallas one day, Mark and I. We passed by Munger Place and he said, let's stop and go in.
So the story goes, they literally broke in. I mean, I don't think they broke a lock, but they made their way in and looked around and it was in tremendous disrepair. But they realized that this was a gem of a location in a neighborhood that was becoming somewhat revitalized and a perfect place to bring Munger Place back to life again.
We went out and met with Bishop Bledsoe. We pitched him the vision and we said, look, here's the deal. If the Methodist Church will hand over this property, we'll recapitalize it. We'll raise all the money to repurpose it, and we will do our best to put wind at the sails of this incredible old church building. We think we can reach people in East Dallas that probably are never going to darken the door of 3300 Mockingbird. But if we do it right, and we give it the right DNA and the right personality that really reflects the essence and the ethos of this neighborhood, then we can make a church work there with God's blessing.
Highland Park invested millions of dollars in renovating this space that I'm sitting in now. And when I first came, about 3 months after it opened, it was very much as you see it today, with this huge video screen and organ pipes flanking it. But it's this really cool blend of old and new. We're kind of quirky here at Munger, but we really like it that way.
A lot of artisans, writers, screenwriters, poets, musicians live in this neighborhood.
My wife had visited here, and she came back, and you probably heard the description of us being somewhat of a quirky church. And she said, Dave, you're going to really enjoy this church. It fits your personality. So we came over here, and my wife couldn't have been more correct. I instantly fell in love with the church. The people are so warm and welcoming. The music was absolutely incredible.
I had about a half a dozen churches on my list that I intended to visit, and every other week I would end up here because I sensed the Holy Spirit here in a very special and precious way. There has always been this tremendous spirit of hospitality here that is still here, that I found very attractive, and started off sitting in one of the back rows and kind of worked my way toward the front. Now I sit on the third row every week.
When this place is full and rocking, you can just feel the Spirit. When we got involved with this church, those front doors were locked and there was only one way into this church. Suddenly you're turning onto Greenville and there's hundreds of people flooding out the front, down those steps onto the sidewalk. And you could feel a palpable sense of energy, and you thought, wait a minute, God's doing something really unique with this church.
Just because of the community, I feel like we're all so deeply intertwined, with adults to toddlers to youth.
Munger Place is more than just a church. It's a community. This whole area, it's hard to describe, but the truth is Munger Place Church fits the community that it sits in so well.
I love that it's a neighborhood church in Old East Dallas. I love that we're diverse socioeconomically, ethnically, culturally. It's just been an amazing place to worship for the last 14 years.
I think this is how I really found my love for community service, because of all the opportunities we have here. And I think day one really shows how strong we are as a church and how our community is just going to flourish as we continue to grow.
So I remember getting the phone call that we were going to begin the process of becoming an autonomous United Methodist church. And I wasn't sure what all that was going to entail, but I promise you it ended up being a lot more than I even thought it would at the time. And I remember sitting in my office and just thinking, I don't know how we're gonna be able to pull this off. What I wasn't accounting for was all of the incredible people that God was gonna put in our path to make this happen.
I think one of the most incredible things about the transition, frankly, was it was led by lay people who weren't paid to do a lot of work that normally companies would pay people to do, which to me just displays their passion for this church and their desire to lay a foundation for the future of Munger Place.
I happen to be one of the transition team that was asked to serve along with several others, and we've been meeting together weekly at least, and just working through all the details. There are many, many details because as a part of Highland Park, we didn't have our own back office, insurance plans, HR, all of those things. And now we've stood all that up to do on our own.
And it has just been such a beautiful process to watch as our congregation and the conference has rallied around this goal of making Munger Place autonomous.
You know, this is going to sound kind of hokey and cliche-ish, but this is really one of my favorite places on the planet to worship, because there's some kind of an intangible energy, we would call that the Holy Spirit, that really has poured into this place. And when you walk into it, it just feels different. It's not the first time that's ever happened. This church has been here 100 years, but all churches kind of ebb and flow, and they all have a life cycle. And when they were down, we were just blessed to be part of that renewal. But that renewal has come from the electricity and the energy through the Holy Spirit that's part and parcel of what it means to worship here.
And so I just have so much hope, so much encouragement, so much joy that we're now getting the opportunity to live into this resurrection, and the joy that so many people are going to feel because of that. And we know that it's by God's grace and God's grace alone that Munger Place will continue to do amazing things in Munger's area, in our community of East Dallas, and hopefully onward.